Welcome to today's deep dive. We are pulling from a really fascinating stack of neuroplasticity research today and, well, architectural case studies too.
Yeah, it's a wild combination.
Right. And our mission is to explore how you can actually rewrite your brain's maladaptive addiction narratives, like targeting your subconscious to reclaim cognitive control.
Exactly. Think of addiction not as a lack of willpower, but like a hijacked smartphone. Your brain's navigation system is just overridden by a background app that is draining the battery.
Like the default mode network.
Right, the DMN.
Yeah.
And it's a profound shift in how we understand recovery. Because, when addiction takes hold, it just floods this region called the nucleus accumbens with massive amounts of dopamine.
Massive amounts.
Yeah, and it essentially hacks your biology. It tells your brain, hey, this addictive behavior is way more important than food or shelter.
Wow, so it completely overrides your natural survival instincts.
Completely. And then that default mode network you mentioned, which is like your brain's internal storyteller and ego center, it traps you in this loop of self-referential rumination.
Just running constantly in the background?
Exactly. It takes a vital survival mechanism and twists it into this persistent, self-destructive prison of habit.
Okay, but I have to push back here for a second. I mean, if addiction is literally rewiring the brain's survival hardware with these massive dopamine surges, how on earth does a tiny micro-habit compete with that?
It sounds impossible, right?
Yeah, it feels like trying to stop a runaway freight train with a speed bump.
I love that analogy. And, well, if you try to meet that dopamine surge head-on with just sheer willpower, the freight train wins. Every single time.
Makes total sense.
But you don't fight the train directly, you dismantle the tracks. This happens in the basal ganglia, which is where your cue, routine, and reward loops are stored.
So you bypass the willpower part entirely.
Right. You can't just wish a habit away. You have to literally starve the old circuits by physically removing the cues from your life.
And starving those circuits triggers, I think the research called it synaptic pruning.
Yes, exactly. So that deep mental exhaustion you feel when you're actively trying to resist a bad habit?
Oh, for sure. It is completely draining.
Well, that is a feeling of microglia. They are your brain's cellular cleanup crew. And they're actually physically eating away the neural pathways that aren't getting fed by cues anymore.
Wait, literally eating them? That is wild.
Yeah, you are physically deleting corrupted wiring and replacing it with targeted, dopamine-anchored microhabits. And the research shows this targeted practice creates measurable structural changes in your prefrontal cortex in just 6 weeks.
6 weeks? That's really fast. But, keeping those microglia hungry requires so much sustained effort, and willpower is finite, right?
Oh, absolutely finite. You cannot rely on internal effort alone.
Right, so you have to engineer your external space to force that rewiring. Which brings us to the case studies on biophilic design.
Right, biophilia. The concept that humans have this innate tendency to seek connections with nature.
And introducing textures like rough stone or exposed wood into our spaces isn't just an aesthetic choice.
No, not at all. Our primitive brains evolved in natural environments, so these specific textures actually subconsciously signal abundance and safety. They act like a cooling system for an overheated brain.
Just passively dropping cortisol levels and grounding a panicked mind.
Exactly. And it directly connects to the physiological stages of recovery, too.
With early detox and sleep, right?
Yeah, early detox severely disrupts your sleep and circadian rhythms. So by introducing dynamic diffuse natural light into a room, you physically bypass the conscious brain.
You're just directly helping the biological clock reset itself.
Right, resetting melatonin and cortisol production without you even having to think about it.
But it's not just the light or the textures. The architecture itself plays a huge role.
Oh, absolutely. The case studies really highlight Prospect Refuge spatial designs.
Okay, Prospect Refuge. What does that actually look like in practice?
Think about sitting in a high-backed booth in the back corner of a restaurant. You have a clear view of your surroundings.
That's the prospect.
Right, but your back is protected, which is the refuge. This specific spatial geometry actually pacifies your amygdala, which is your primitive threat detector.
So it lowers stress hormones, letting the brain actually divert energy toward healing and pruning instead of panicking.
Exactly.
So how do we translate all of this neurobiological and architectural theory into a daily subconscious training roadmap for you, the listener?
Well, you need to build an environment that forces a new mind. First, clear visual clutter. Every single object in your view demands a tiny fraction of visual processing power.
Because removing clutter literally frees up cognitive bandwidth.
Yes. Second, You have to create high-friction, phone-free zones in your home to physically break your digital cue loops.
Make it hard to fail.
Exactly. And finally, when you work or learn, aim for tasks that match the 4% challenge skill ratio.
I'm really glad you brought that up. Why exactly 4%?
Because if a task stretches your current abilities by exactly 4%, it requires just enough focus to quiet that rumination of the default mode network. But it isn't so hard that it induces panic.
Oh, so it drops you right into a flow state.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And hitting a flow state naturally replenishes your dopamine, entirely without substances.
That is incredible. And it means we are constantly absorbing the geometry of our spaces, which introduces a really fascinating thought for you to mull over.
It really does.
If our neural pathways are constantly, literally, physically reorganizing themselves to mirror the spaces we occupy, are we ever truly making free choices?
Right. Or are our decisions just echoes of the architecture we live in?
It really demands we question how much agency we have over our environment before our environment has agency over us.
Absolutely.
Definitely something to keep in mind the next time you try to reprogram the software of your mind. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us.